Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Knapik. Every week we talk about success and everything that goes along with it. You'll learn the principles of success, how to achieve success, and learn to overcome challenges that may be getting in the way of success in your life. You'll hear from Bill Knapik, a radio personality and business development expert, along with insight from special guests. If you're ready to find your path to success or take the success you're enjoying to the next level, stay tuned. Successful Living with Bill Knapik is on right now.
And welcome to the show, Successful Living with Bill Knapik. And today, Successful Living with Kevin Riles, a gifted author, broadcaster, and real estate broker. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill, for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, we didn't go through all your credentials because they are many, but let's tell people about what you do.
Okay. I'm a commercial real estate broker, first and foremost. I own Kevin Riles Commercial, which is a commercial real estate firm that does investment brokerage, tenant representation, and then also some consulting. Also, I am an author. I have authored 2 books, Confessions of a Top Producer, 9 Tools for Sales, Success, and Abundance, and 40 Acres and a Mule, the African-American Guide to Building Wealth Through Real Estate. I also do a lot of motivational speaking in and around not just the city, but the United States. I've been doing that since college, so 20 plus years. And my newest venture in the last 8 months is I started a podcast called The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles, shameless plug, available on Apple iTunes or Google Play. And so I talk about real estate topics, educate the folks on real estate, but also the real estate of life. I put the life in there so I could talk about success principles, kind of like you do every week.
Indeed. In fact, that's the great thing on your podcast. What you bring forth every show really has, you don't have to be in real estate to get something from it because you're talking about great things all the time. In addition, you also have monthly themes. Here we are in April, but I loved Motivational March was great. Let's tell them about April and what's coming down the pike on your
Motivational
podcast.
March, we had motivational topics. I had some guests talking about, when you invest in real estate or whatever you do in life, every once in a while you need some motivation. So we had motivational topics. In April, we're doing Investor April. So I'm interviewing investors that are at different levels of real estate investment. Just interviewed a young man who is early 30s who just quit his job from real estate investment. Yesterday, interviewed when we taped a young man who is now living in London on an expat assignment with a major oil and gas company, but he has bought property and he has selected to do Airbnb rentals. And so we talked a lot about that whole market. Interviewing the guy that actually got me started in real estate, who is a major investor in Houston, owns quite a few properties tomorrow as well. And then I'm going to end the month with a commercial investor.
And as the interest is peaked right now for your podcast, let's tell people the coordinates so they can go forward and find that.
Sure. So anywhere you can listen to your podcast. So Apple iTunes, you can subscribe. If you Google The Real Estate of Life or search The Real Estate of Life on Apple iTunes, or my name, if you search my name, Kevin Riles, that's all you really have to remember is my name. On Apple iTunes, Google Play, Sketcher, all of the podcast services, we are on all of them. Or you can go to my website, kevinriles.com, click on podcasts and subscribe there as well.
And there's always great stuff there, and that's Riles. That's right. When you Google Kevin Riles, it's all going to just unfold. It'll unfold before him. Well, Kevin, when we think about, first off, when you mentioned the word investor, at this point in time in Houston and long before, this seems like the place where investors, this is ground zero for investors, I would think. Certainly other cities, and I know you had a guy from Toronto on one of your shows,
right.
But other cities, certainly there's real estate investment going on all the time. But here in Houston, with the diversity of properties and people flocking to this city, tell us about the texture of the investment scenario now.
Sure. So one of my major silos is multifamily. I sell a lot of apartment complexes. My specialty is typically apartment complexes below 100 units. And I specialize in that because that's kind of the everyday investor that can get in those. And I like dealing with those particular guys. I've sold bigger deals, but that's my sweet spot. And so Houston, I think at one point in time, there were 20,000 people a month moving to the greater Houston area as of last year. I'm not sure what the numbers are this year. And so there's a significant demand for housing. And as my mentor I'm interviewing tomorrow says, everyone needs a place to stay. And so multifamily demand is significant. And because it's significant, there are investment opportunities out there for that. The secondary, I would say, is retail. people need a place to stay, but they also need a place to go get their hair cut and get something to eat and things of that nature. So those are my two major investment brokerage silos. I sell other things, but and the interest in Houston is from California. I have clients from California, New York, as you mentioned, Toronto. So there's outside interest in the Houston market because our fundamentals are so strong.
And speaking of Toronto, it's interesting, the person that does my lawn as far as weed and feed and things like that, he bought a franchise, and he is from Toronto.
Really?
And he's been here about a year and a half with a successful business doing lawn. In fact, he's going to be one of my upcoming guests. He's going to talk about that coming up in a few shows. The other thing about whether someone's interested in buying commercial or residential at this point in time, certainly as people listen to the show, even if they're not interested in that, I find it fascinating that what's going on in the commercial helps us understand what's going on in our city or part of the city that we live in. So people just listening out there, knowing what's going on in the investment side of things affects everything we do. And it's still, would you say it's brisk?
Oh, no, absolutely. On the commercial side, both residential, I watch residential because it just the opposite of what you said as well. Residential kind of dictates what's going on in commercial, and commercial dictates this kind of symbiotic relationship. But no, it is absolutely brisk to the point of it's hard to find sometimes multifamily deals because they are kind of priced high right now based on the level of demand. So development of multifamily is significant. But no, the commercial real estate market in Houston is very strong. The ones that is lagging behind a little bit, but it's on its way back, has been the office market, and the office market was impacted by the oil and gas market. So you had a lot of sublease opportunities out there for small businesses that could get into really good leases that had already been negotiated. But even it is starting to rebound as well as the oil and gas market rebounds.
And one of the things I think about, and I don't know, I bet others do, as they drive around, and we see the various shopping centers, whether they're small, large, and then we see some that are like beat up, and then we see some that are really nice, and everything in between. I always wonder, how does everybody make it? And I know some don't, but you're looking around and you say, how is that particular business doing? And wherever they're at, they're paying somebody rent.
Correct.
But you have the insiders look to that.
Well, you know what? I asked the same question as far as that's concerned.
They're selling what?
Right, exactly.
How many of those do I need to sell to
But
make
you know
this
what?
work?
What I found in commercial real estate, I've been doing this for 20 years. I made the hard turn to commercial 10 years ago. And I found out in commercial that people get money from different places. So to start their business or to maintain their business, there are people that get it from traditional banks. There are people that get it from families and friends. And then there are people that raise money from various, stockholders and private investments. And so money is actually readily available. And so sometimes when you see something that you might not think is a great idea, somebody did, and they're funding that. Now, how long they can fund it becomes a question. You can see by, sometimes I'm writing down 59 or 45 and I'm looking like, man, why did they build that, there, or why did they build that in general? But it was funded in some type of way. There's a lot of also direct foreign investment or indirect foreign investment in Houston through programs like EB-5 and things of that nature, where people can essentially invest in a deal and get a green card. And so there's a lot of foreign investment in commercial investment as well. So I say all that to say that people are doing that in a city where they think it can thrive. So Houston, for those that are listening, is doing great. If you see anything that says that we're not, then they're not paying attention to what's going on.
And also, Kevin, let's tell people your website as they're listening. They could follow along and also go for your podcast as well.
Just remember KevinRiles.com. My last name is spelled R-I-L-E-S, Robert, Igloo, Larry, Edward, Sam, KevinRiles.com. If you go to KevinRiles.com, you can get to me from a motivational speaking and podcast standpoint, and KevinRiles.com will also take you over to our commercial company, KevinRilesCommercial.com. So if you Google me, which is not like tickling me, but if you Google me, you can find me.
And also, I will tell people that you mentioned the statistics or some of the numbers that are coming into Houston. People are still coming into Texas. They're coming into Houston. And I believe the eyes of the world really look at Houston, Texas, and other cities in Texas. I heard a statistic that said there's 400 people per day coming into Texas. Now, how many of those are in Houston? I don't know, but I don't know if that's right. But there is a lot, and all you have to do is drive or park on any of our
drive.
try to drive on our highways. Exactly. They're all packed almost all the time. It's ridiculous.
No, absolutely. Texas is good for business. We have people that move here from out of state that have state income tax always one of the things they're always like, man, your property tax is so high, and I always have to remind them we don't have a state income tax, so that's how we derive our income. And so, no, you're right. If you look at, I'll use Pearland as an example. My mother lives in Pearland. I live in Missouri City and Sienna Plantation, but Pearland on an arbitrary 1 o'clock on Saturday on 518 at 288 is a traffic jam. And Pearland has been steadily trying to increase its throughput as far as streets are concerned, but they can't keep up with the demand because the development is just so significant out there. And that's just one area. You could say the same thing about areas in Tomball, in the Woodlands, Katy, things of that nature. And where I live in Missouri City, the Sugar Land area, Highway 6. And so, we have really good fundamentals here. We have, regardless of what you hear out there, good school districts, good schools, and our cost of living it has gone up, but it is not still a very affordable cost of living.
A side note, as I drive into church at 7 a.m. Sunday morning.
It's an early morning service guy.
Well, I'm a musician. I get there in advance. But on the Katy Freeway heading into town, it's not like there's a traffic jam at all. It moves briskly,
but people on the road.
But I'm like, what are these people doing on the road at this hour? I know where I'm going, but where are they going?
Well, hopefully they're going to church too, Bill. But
we hope so, yeah. Well, also, let's tell people about when we talk about motivation, and that word comes up, I remember, and we'll have to paraphrase the Zig Ziglar quote, but people say about motivation, oh, well, it doesn't last. Well, I think Zig Ziglar said something like, yeah, that's why it's like bathing. You have to do it often.
Right.
And motivation, we need that in life with all the challenges that are out there, and plus that extra encouragement. Tell us about your view and what you talk about when you do the motivational talks, and I would assume it's on different subjects.
Sure. It is. My primary subject is based off the book that I wrote, The Tools for Success. And in that particular book, Confessions of a Top Producer, I talk about applying the tools that I believe in life are to sales, but I have a life philosophy, and one of those is, my main philosophy is that we should all live a purpose-driven life. And the reason I'm a big believer of that is, if you know what your purpose is, if you know why God put you on this earth, then in and of itself, that is motivation, because when you work within your purpose, you're no longer working. And what I mean by that is that if you happen to have a vocation in which it is purpose-driven, then you're not working. You don't feel like you're at work. And so one of the things I enjoy doing is things like this. We're on a radio show. I have the podcast. I enjoy speaking. When I do this, and even when I get paid to do it, I don't feel like it's a job. It's just something that comes so natural to me. I really enjoy it. And some people, when they get up in front of a crowd, is akin to death. Like, oh my God, I'm sweating. When I get in front of a crowd, it's akin to life. I love doing it. And so speaking, coaching, teaching is a part of my purpose. And so even in my real estate business, I'm a teacher, consultant, real estate practitioner more so than a sales guy. At least that's the way I practice. And so I'm living within my purpose. And so for those of you out there that are, trying to struggle as, man, I hate getting up and going to work, or I hate this, you're probably not working within your purpose.
In your strength zone and your purpose.
Right.
And as John Maxwell says, it's not work unless I'd rather be doing something else. So profound.
Yes.
And the other thing he said, touching upon what you said, is that the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why.
Right. No, absolutely. and look, I'm a Maxwell certified trainer.
Oh, is that right?
I am. I got that certification about a year and a half ago.
Good for you.
And so you're right. His axioms
that guy is something.
He is very much so something. I've enjoyed him for years. But you're right. You have to have one of my things in the book that I talk about is, and this is for sales individuals, but people in life, you must have a why. You must have a why. You have to have a why in life, and that why is motivational, inspirational in general. So my why is Cher Denise Williams Riles. Yes, she has 3 names, my wife, and Madison Marie Lanice Riles. We just kept it going with the 2 middle names, but
that's a nice rhythm to it.
Exactly,
I like that.
Exactly. I only have one, which I'm not going to share, but those are my whys. And so I get up every morning, and sometimes when you don't feel like doing something, I remember that Cher and Madison are my whys. And so as I search for my purpose, though, I had to ask myself some questions over the years. I'm 44 years old. And so, a lot of us spend our time in careers and in vocations that are good incomes, but aren't a part of our purpose, and we wonder why we stress. And so to me, you should be living your purpose, if not in your vocation, then in your avocation, which is what you do after work.
And certainly there are times in our life, I've been there many times, where I'm not doing what I'm enjoying, but it's getting me to the next level.
Absolutely.
Because you can't always be doing that. And I remember speaking to John Maxwell just one more time, as I heard him speak one time about, I guess, 3-4 years ago. He said, as he talks about, I'm doing this because I love doing this. He says, do you think I came to Houston because I wanted to take another airplane ride or that I wanted to see this hotel?
Right.
He says, no, this is what I do. And he says, as far as retiring, when am I going to retire? I'm not going to retire. He says, when I die, I'm not going to speak anymore, and I'm not going to write any more books.
No, absolutely. My next book is going to be on purpose. I've that has been clearly defined to me, as far as what I should write about, because I see that in all of my things. I'm an adjunct professor at Prairie View A&M University, which I'm headed to after we finish here today. And when I talk to those students and they have questions about, what they should do in, life, it's purpose. When I talk to my real estate clients and they're trying to build wealth, a lot of times that's because of purpose. And so to me, there are so many people out there that struggle with this concept of purpose. And I know sometimes it can sound like pie in the sky and, hey, I still have to make a mortgage and go to work. So no, I'm not out there advocating for you to jump off and quit your job. But I do think you have to find what your life's purpose is. And even if you're in a job that you don't particularly care for, how can I find my purpose and apply it within my job so that I can scratch that itch and not be as stressed? So again, that's really on my mind these days, is this definition of purpose and people living their highest and best life.
And we're talking with Kevin Riles. He has a podcast called The Real Estate of Life and a company called Kevin Riles Commercial. A thing just jumped in my mind, Kevin, as we're talking, as you mentioned again, real estate investing. We all, or at least people in my generation, all are familiar and have played the game of Monopoly. Is that not investing? I mean, you've played it, right?
Absolutely.
Here you are, you have the Monopoly board and you're investing, and you have X amount that you start with,
right.
And some are more desirable, but you can make money on each thing. But again, it's about being strategic and knowing how to play the game, and that's how you're helping people.
And one of my success
Real life Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly. One of my success principles in Confessions of a Top Producer is you have to know how to play the game. And I'll talk about the game of life, but even in real estate investment, absolutely. Monopoly, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Kiyosaki has a game out there. The name escapes me right now, but it's kind of Monopoly-ish. But Monopoly, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure someone will correct me at kevinriles.com if I'm wrong, was started as a result of the Depression. And trying to basically put a game to show people how to build wealth after the Depression. And so, and those principles still apply. Those principles, even though they've modernized the game and made the characters cute and all that kind of stuff, those principles still apply. And so, one of the, as I talk about purpose again, one of the my purposes is to make sure that I leave generational wealth to my family. I have an only child, Madison. God has blessed me to do way better from financially than my mom did with me. She did what she could, and turned out, I think, pretty awesome. But I'm doing trying to do the same thing for Madison, and then her children and those children. And so purpose can also be economically motivated as well.
I'm thinking there was a day about 2 weeks ago, I really didn't want to do what I had on my schedule. I didn't want to go to that meeting, and I'm talking to myself like, oh, man, I don't want to do that. Poor me. And then I thought about, and I haven't thought about him for many years, but my grandfather. My grandfather worked in a coal mine in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And I started thinking, I bet every day he didn't want to go down into that coal mine. Dirty, just a horrible situation, but there were no jobs to have in that particular area of Pennsylvania. So all of a sudden I perked up.
No,
saying,
absolutely. Hey, look, my grandmother, who is still kicking at 88 years old, walking 3 miles a day. Shout out to my grandmother and my aunt, who is 94 years old. Longevity runs on that side of the family. I hope I got that gene. But look, she cleaned houses for as long as I can remember. And I think about all the things that she had to go through, and she lives in Bay City, Texas. And so I think about my aunt working as a nurse's aide. I think about my grandfather, who worked for Celanese Corporation for almost 50 years before he retired, and how they really honestly didn't have a choice, and they got up every day Papa, my grandfather, Friday was payday. He would come home during the summers. I would stay there, give me $20 that I wish I still had today. I should have invested. And he would, he was just a good guy. So I think about, just like you, all of my ancestors and what
those
they did.
that went before us, how thankful they built a foundation for us.
Absolutely.
And Kevin, with the last few minutes, what else
Sure.
would you like people to know about what you're doing and how they can reach out to you?
Well, I would love for them to log on and subscribe to my podcast. That is my passion project right now. I love real estate, so I'm going to talk about that as well. But if you ask me, once I get to the financial goals, what I will be doing, I will be speaking and doing podcast or radio. That's what I just love to do. So kevinriles.com. Again, on Apple iTunes, Google Play, or any of your podcasting service, if you search my name, Kevin Riles, you'll be able to find that. And then ultimately, kevinrilescommercial.com is where we sell investment property, commercial investment properties. Again, we do some tenant rep being we represent tenants looking for lease space, specifically retail tenants. And then we do our other silo, our third silo and final silo is kind of small business commercial real estate. The big guys, the big major corporations, they have large commercial real estate companies that help them. What happens to the mid-size and small guys that want to buy a building or want to sell a building or buy land and develop? So I kind of specialize in that small business market as well.
And if there's someone out there right now that may be struggling with a challenge or two or three, whatever, how about a word of encouragement for those people out there to get through that road bump that they may be going through right now?
Well, I am a big believer in prayer. I'm not trying to preach to anyone, but a prayer, meditation, however you find your quiet place, to be generic. I do believe in praying and meditating on and visualizing, not only success, but how you want things to change. Secondly, I would say, again, I'll go back to it, finding your purpose. A lot of life's problems as it pertains to vocation or avocation can be solved if we're very clear on purpose. You mentioned, hey, I don't want to go to this meeting, but that meeting is going to help me get to my purpose.
That's
so
right.
Therefore, there's a mission. And then 3, I'm learning this. So this is someone that, hi, my name is Kevin, and I have the same problem. To have fun, to laugh. My wife has started asking me this year, did you laugh today at the end of the day?
That's a great word right
there. Did you laugh today? And so sometimes I tell her, no, I didn't.
Well, let's get with it, right?
Exactly. It makes me laugh when she says that.
There's no doubt. KevinRiles.com. Go to his podcast, The Real Estate of Life. Kevin, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Bill.
And we're going to be here next week. Check us out, radiobill.net. You can find the channel to all the shows right there, radiobill.net. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you, Kevin Riles.